Porn Stars or People Podcast. This is the first time I sung the intro. I'm here with Della Dane. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
This is we're at AVN. Yes. My first time.
This is my first AVN
Your
as
first
well.
time.
Yes.
Couple virgins, no big deal. So what? So you've only been here for what, a day?
I got here at 2:30 a.m. yesterday.
Last night. It's exactly when I got here. So
no,
you haven't.
Yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
As in, I drove
out.
out.
Tuesday night.
So I drove out Tuesday night from LA.
Got it. So
Yeah.
you did a whole day yesterday.
Yes.
So you've seen some stuff.
Yeah, I just ran around, did whatever. I didn't plan anything.
Yeah.
Because wasn't sure when I was planning my trip. I wasn't sure when I was going to actually come out.
Right.
So I said, I'm not going to commit to anything.
Yeah.
I had an interview last night, but other than that, I just kind of
Nice.
did whatever I wanted to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. Basically, I got in last night at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And
Where are you coming from?
So New York, but no. So I
Okay.
was in South Africa when they said you can come and do this, and I was there for 3 weeks doing
Oh, okay.
comedy. And they said you can come and do this, and I said cool. Finally, they gave me press passes. I requested press passes months ago.
Mm-hmm.
They finally confirmed them. While I was in South Africa, so I booked it for South Africa, and then from South Africa, I flown out of Boston because I can't keep my car in New York for 3 weeks where I live.
Yeah.
So I flew out of Boston, buddy of mine, Wacky Chad. Shout out Wacky Chad. And then my grandfather died, so I had to come home for the funeral. So I came home, Boston, Albany, New York,
Oh my God.
back to Albany, back to Boston, flew out to here. So that's where
how's
I'm
your jet lag?
That's where I'm coming
How's
from.
your jet lag right now?
Thank God what happened. So South Africa's 12 hours from me, right? So what happened was last night I passed out on the plane. I slept like 6 hours on the plane, and then I went to bed and I slept like another 6 or 7 hours. So I'm
You're feeling pretty good
I
right now.
finally feel like a person.
Good.
But I was a wreck Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,
Oh, yeah.
Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
So today's the first time I'm a human. So you got me as a human.
Good.
Yeah. So my point is I haven't done anything yet.
I feel, well, you definitely should.
I haven't done any of the things.
Definitely should run around. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
Yes.
Convention.
Yes.
I'm like, Erica's like, here, you need to sign here and then you sign here. I'm like, where the fuck is that?
Here's what I found.
I'm like, is this, can you is there a map? No, not really.
There's not a map.
There's not
at
really
all.
a map.
It's too many walls is what I found.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. So like if
Yeah.
it was one big room, I feel like it would be less confusing.
Well, because I don't think they have
They
one.
don't. It's 9
There
rooms. So
is
it's
not
9.
one big room.
Right. So so we've taken to the whole hotel, but so
Yeah.
it's 9 rooms.
Yeah.
So it's like every time you want to like go left, there's a wall. I've
Yeah.
actually been witnessing people walk into walls in the.
Oh,
the
and
things.
then
It's actually
even
kinda funny.
better. So I signed. I was signing at the AVN booth
Yes.
earlier, and then I was sharing a table with someone else, and the way I came in, they wouldn't let me leave.
Right.
They're like, "This is no longer an exit." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like,
Yeah.
they're like, "No, go that way, and then go this way, and
Like,
then go
I don't
this
know
way."
what
And
those
I'm
things
like,
are.
I'm like, I need to can I please leave this place?
Yeah. No, it's so chaotic. This is what I found. It's so chaotic that you can just go, okay, and then you just
The
literally.
security is really nice, though.
But you
They're
literally
very,
just
very nice.
walk like this, and then you go right back out the same way
Yeah.
because there's so much going on. They're not even paying attention. Yeah, like I was trying to figure out where I was, and I walked 2 steps past, like the guys who were scanning. They were like, "We need to scan you again." And I was like, "I never left. I'm still here." And they're like, "Oh, okay." But it's like, yeah, there's just it's so, but it is. It's so many entrances though
Yeah.
too, and
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like, I mean, it's chaos.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it's fun at the same time. It's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
going
cool.
on.
And I, even though I've been in the industry for 3 months,
Yeah.
super new.
Oh shit.
Yeah, brand new.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people
Sure.
in the industry already, and
Yeah.
so it's been really fun just to run into people. That
Yeah,
I know,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, oh,
It's cool.
I mean, just even trying to come here,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
No, when I got down,
I saw like 4 people I knew on the way.
yeah, when I got down to the booth where I was supposed to be, and I realized it wasn't a thing. It took me longer to get out of there than it took me to get in there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like because this conference is so huge, what happens is. Like I meet people that I've interviewed before, and we recognize each other, and then there's that minute where we have to recalibrate. We're like, "Why do I know you? Why do I know you? Why do
Yep.
I know you're in
Yep.
this thing, but why do I know you?" And then that's when I realized that's what the fucking badge is for. That's the whole thing the badge is for.
Oh, yeah.
Is you go, "Oh my
Oh,
God,
yeah.
it's so nice to see you," and then you look at the thing, and you're like, "Of course I know who you are, but but I don't have time to process it."
Yep. Well,
And
and,
so-
and for me, man, again, it's kind of been like such a whirlwind. Like
Yeah.
and I try to go to a lot of the events in LA and stuff,
Yeah.
industry events, and so I've gotten to know a lot of the photographers and press people and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I don't remember their names.
And you don't know the context necessarily.
I know the context
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
because most of the social stuff I do now is related to my career, but I'll look at them and be like, hi, and
Yeah.
they know, like, Della, they
Right.
know my name, and but I'm like, yeah, you've taken pictures of me, or you follow me on Twitter.
It takes a long time.
I had people come up to me yesterday when I was just walking around the
Yeah.
show, like in my jeans and a tank top.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I follow you on Twitter. Can I
Yeah.
take a picture with you? And I was like, that's weird. Like, this is such a new experience for me.
Yeah,
I love it. I think it's cool.
It takes a
But
minute
at the
to
same time, it is
calibrate
kinda
to the
strange.
situation. I've seen really successful comedians do this thing where, because they know that they're going to get hit up so much by people just walking down the street, like they'll play the Comedy Cellar, that they've developed this mechanism where they're like, hey, and they give somebody a hug, and they start the conversation, and that gives them enough time for their brain to catch up to where I met him, how I know him, what his name is, and it's like we need.
But
that
these are people I
second.
don't know that were
Yeah,
coming up to me.
yeah. So that's it's good because then they go, we know you from Twitter, we're your fan, and you go, great, I'm not supposed to know you, yeah. But it's like, and this thing you got to be like on all the time because you can't even be rude for a second because then it's like this girl doesn't care about her fans.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, it's
and then it
thing.
spreads like wildfire.
Right. Yeah, that fucking girl.
It's like that one bad Yelp review.
Yeah. Or like, there's all these like Hollywood stories of like actresses who like were hard to work with, and they get on the list of hard to work with or whatever. Yeah, we all have this fear.
I am absolutely not hard to work with.
So easy to work with. So thank you for. Okay, so I've been asking people. This is what I try to figure out because the name of the podcast is Porn Stars Are People. The goal of the podcast is to go, look, we don't have to talk about porn. You're in porn, but like that's just a tiny part of life, right? Okay. So what are things that you do in your life to navigate life that to keep you sane, to like whatever, like what are your like ideologies or
So I don't know how much Erica has told you about me, or
no, nothing.
I
got no information.
Do you know anything about me?
I got no information. No.
So first of all, I'm 33 years old.
Okay.
I just came into the industry.
Yeah.
I have a master's degree in couples and family therapy.
Couples and family therapy.
I worked as a sex therapist for about 5 years.
Oh wow. This might not sound like a natural progression to other people, but this sounds like a natural progression to me.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to grad school in Philly.
Okay. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Portland, Oregon originally.
Oh, very cool.
So I grew up right outside of Portland, Oregon.
Okay, what town?
Beaverton.
Okay,
Shout
I know
out to
Beaverton.
Beaverton.
Yeah.
Really?
My
How do you know
good friend.
Beaverton?
Well, a good friend. Well, it's Nike, but a good friend of mine lives in Eugene, and I've been all through Portland, Eugene, Salem, the whole thing. That's great. Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
So so then I was in the Bay Area for 3.5 years.
Yeah. As a counselor?
I was doing that part-time, and I was also stripping part-time.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, because it's very fucking expensive to live in San Francisco.
Sure.
So I was doing that, and, I'd considered doing porn for a long time. But it wasn't until I came to LA.
Yeah.
A few different, it doesn't really matter.
You just get some opportunities.
Stuff happened. But, because of my experience up to this point, and to kind of loop back to your question, I think I have a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah.
This
is interesting.
Yes, because I've worked corporate jobs.
Yeah.
I have, I've worked in restaurants. I've done a lot of different kinds of jobs, and jobs that require a really high level of professionality, jobs that require me to fucking be on time or you get fired, that kind of thing. And so
so you were standing out in this industry.
I hope so.
because there are people that have joined this industry who are 20 and they act like a 20-year-old, and they have that level of pressure. So it's interesting because I actually have this theory about comedians that started their career like Ray Romano later on in life, Tim Allen later on in life, hit these strides way faster because they had, as a comedian, you just didn't need things to talk about, but they had things to talk about, and they had life experience to bring to the situation, which I had never considered for porn, but this is totally applicable.
Yeah, and I think and again, because I have this background in mental health, I've done a lot of personal work as far as having personal insight and being able to check in with myself about needing to self-care and I'm trying to think. It's like there's a party every fucking night you can go to, and especially living in LA and being an attractive woman and having the connections that I have.
Yeah, of course.
I get invited to go out and party all the time, and that kind of thing, and being able to say no and take care of myself and listen to myself, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are some of the things that keep me sane, I guess.
No, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, just knowing yourself.
Building like I mean, I've created some really strong relationships with people in the industry.
Nice.
I'm like one of my best friends. I call him my porn bestie.
Sure.
His name is Eddie J.
Yeah, we do that a lot. We go, my best friend in comedy.
Well,
it's funny.
Bestie. Well, so his name's Eddie J. He's a great performer. And he actually is the one that got me signed with my agency.
Nice.
I'm signed with Society 15. And he and I stayed up until like 4 o'clock this morning. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the
it's all good. No, it's Ricky. Ricky's gonna come do the interview in
like
an hour. Yeah. he's the next slot. I met him at Exotic. He's dope. Everybody's always like, "Oh, Ricky." He's great.
He's such a goofball. I love him. I mean, he and I, we're both in porn, and we've worked together, and we've fucked or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
this is Ricky or your other friend?
I'm talking about
the 2 a.m. friend.
Eddie, because we're staying together, and we stayed up until like 4 o'clock this morning, and we're fucking like getting wasted. We were hanging out and talking about real shit.
Yeah.
And for me, that's another thing that is really my relationships in my life are really, really important.
Sure.
I come from a very conservative Christian family, and so I've kind of like created my own family in a lot of ways. And so creating those relationships and that network and support system. Yeah.
It is. It's an interesting thing. So I think we all kind of live a life that's less accepting than it could be. But people in my industry, people in your industry have to find a different balance, because there is a list of things that people think about our businesses that might not be true. Mm-hmm. And so then we gotta fucking live in the world where we gotta like navigate that part of the conversation, and so finding people who are accepting of us ahead of time becomes a value.
I think it's also a challenge just to mitigate the stigma for yourself.
Yeah.
And then also, I was talking about this last night with some people, is that, as much as I like don't believe certain things.
Sure.
They're still there, like they're still ingrained. Right. I like hold back in telling someone sometimes, like,
there's a little
I
truth.
do porn because I'm not sure how they're gonna react.
And there's a little
not
truth to every
really
stereotype, right? Like there's like some of these things came from some place, but then also that like there's a level of intolerance out there that is fading. Yeah. But it's still around, and sometimes you meet somebody and it's you find out quick what their ideology is, and But and then you're mid conversation. You got to decide what other things you want to distribute to them,
or how you can.
Or you just nod. You just nod and get out, right? Like I found a Trump supporter in South Africa. Crazy situation.
I'm so sorry.
And I was listening to his points, and it made sense. Like I get where he's coming from. How in his brain that
is he American?
No, he's South African. South Africa and the U.S. are very, very similar places.
That's fascinating, though. That he would.
Well, here's what it is.
So
racism was the policy for so many years. So if you're a white person in South Africa, I can understand how you think that what Trump is trying to do would also make sense in your country because of some of the things. Like we had not that we had a debate, but basically he told me that that there was a time when you could shoot someone.
Speaking of the devil.
It's funny.
Eddie's calling me right now.
You could shoot someone in your own house, and it wouldn't be a crime. And now he was like lamenting the fact that if he shot somebody in his own house, now they would get better health care than him. So it's like I get where the thought process. You know what I mean? But it's like at the same time,
horrific.
Right? But at the same time, I was like, you still shot. You understand? You still shot up. Yeah. Like that's not the better. That wasn't the better time period when you could shoot somebody and then go and have dinner with your family.
Yeah, in the same way that going to work in the coal mines or whatever. Bring back coal it wasn't a better time.
Right. or hitting your wife or whatever the thing was. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what I think for me, the lack of censorship is what I strive for as a comedian, and that's what I gravitate towards about this industry. Yeah, is that you guys are rewriting acceptable standards of entertainment, like almost every day, and especially when you get into fetish and these things, and more than that, as a counselor, you understand that like we're making it so that people who maybe have a particular desire might now be aware of that desire, and hopefully, this is the part that I'm shaking on with porn. Hopefully, they actually approach their partner about it now. But what I find a little bit is that it gives them an avenue to maybe never ask their partner because they can get it online. So then they go into the basement.
I think it can also, but I think it can also be and you know, like I said, I specialized in sex therapy, so a lot of the stuff I worked with was couples issues.
Yes.
And whether that was sexual issues or whatever, but I think that it can also, the advantage of porn and fantasy is that sometimes it can actually give you the option to introduce it in a way that's like less anxiety producing.
And that's the hopeful part that I have.
Yeah.
But then there's the side that I worry about. I don't have any information to say that like people that are looking this stuff up aren't asking their wife for it, but I have an inkling that if there's something that they, you know, have never done with their wife and they find online and are attracted to it, that they're not.
Well, the other thing the other thing that I really think is kind of great about porn, and this is something I did a shoot I'm trying to remember, like maybe a month ago or something.
Sure.
And it was a really rough shoot. It was intentionally. It was rough sex, you know.
Yeah.
You know, face slapping and spitting and choking, and I had to puke on this guy's dick and everything. And
the classics.
It was actually
the classics.
It was awesome. It was really awesome. I loved it, and I had a great performer that I was working with, Rico Strong. But they did, you know, just extra legality. I had the pre-video like interview thing before saying, you know, okay, what are your boundaries? You want to do this? You're not under the influence of anything, whatever.
Yes.
And then afterwards, did a little post interview. You know, and personally, I like rough sex in my personal life.
Sure.
Like I like, you know, I like fetish stuff. I'm kinky, like all of that. But the thing that I talked about, and this is something that I still think about a lot in the kind of porn that I shoot, or you know, whenever I'm shooting porn, because I do all kinds of stuff, but is that it's an opportunity to go to a place that you can't in your personal life, because it was a really fucked up scene, you know, that we did, and it was like it was racial, because it was interracial, and we were like playing on like white guilt. I was wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt. I mean, like
so it's not a real life situation,
you know, and I mean, the director was interviewing me, you know, and he was like, well, are you racist? I was like, well, I think we're all a little bit racist, as the song goes, but you know, no, I don't condone that, but this is something that it's the taboo. It's the hotness of that like taboo thing.
The thing you can't have.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with Sydney Cole. Did a scene where she was supposed to be just passed out and nothing sexual happened as far as she was concerned, and you know, I was like, but that's the thing that taboo. That's the word I didn't have at the time, but that's this thing that we're not supposed to do becomes. We become obsessed with it if we don't ever get to taste that. And
the forbidden, the taboo.
The forbidden fruit, and all of the things that we're not supposed to do. And that's what I find. It was when you lack the communication. And this is where cheating comes from. When you lack the communication, you start obsessing over the thing you're not supposed to have, and next thing you know, you're at the office Christmas party giving hand jobs. You know what I mean? Whereas if you could have just talked
at the same time.
Whereas if you just talk to your boyfriend, your wife, your husband, whoever about it, maybe that shit would have got dispelled. Maybe you would have realized that that's not the thing for you.
Or it becomes internalized shame. You know, and then you know, you see those people that are, you know, 15, 20 years into a relationship, and they're like, oh, by the way. Right. they finally tell them.
Right.
You know.
Well, but also that also speaks to the fact that sexuality is complex, and it is ever changing.
Oh yeah.
I was working on a piece of comedy material for a while where the idea was that like every new thing that you add to sex as a man, I can only speak as a man, now stays. Like if we do a weird thing, like if we put cigarettes out on our girl's chest and then we come, the line was that like it's in there now like forever, like Avatar.
Oh, so it's like so now it's like, okay, I can only come if I'm putting out a cigarette.
If I'm putting a cigarette out, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Kelly's playing in the background. There's someone on television being shot during the Holocaust. It's like, and that's not the bit, but that's the idea, is that like what happens when I'm 60? They're gonna have to hang me from the ceiling. You know what I mean?
Well, that actually used to be kind of a belief system. People that were very anti-porn they would talk about there were people that were anti-porn, or they would talk about porn addiction, which I don't really believe in that, but
we'll talk about this point.
Yeah. But they would believe there was kind of this theory that it was like, well, once you start watching one thing, then you're looking for more and more extreme.
I agree. You don't agree with this?
But no, but okay, I do believe that can be true.
Yeah.
But the theory was that then you'll never be able to go back to just having vanilla sex.
Okay. Well, okay. So that's right. There's a time and a place for everything, right? And
or you won't be able to be satisfied.
Yeah.
by.
Well, and obviously, like there's the bit. It's a comedic thing. It's hyperbole. It's exaggeration. It's like, of course, I can have fucking passionate, beautiful sex after I was with a girl who wanted me to slap her across the face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course you can.
Yeah,
but there's some truth to that idea. But it's not a negative necessarily that you find. It's like you got it. Like you beat the first level of sex.
Yeah.
It's okay to get to the next level. You know
Leveling
what I mean?
up.
Yeah, it's okay to get to the hard boss. You know.
Yeah.
It's okay to find out the next thing that you're into and capable of.
Yeah.
The addiction thing. I do think that there is. Did you see this movie Don John?
Yes.
Now initially when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, this is just dumb and it's whatever. But then when I started watching it, there is a complexity to what he's talking about. This idea that, and what was brilliant was he packaged it, just like 3 Billboards packaged the racism through the language of racism.
I haven't seen that. I gotta
it's brilliant. So what happens is they tell the story through the way that people who are racist would speak. You know what I mean? They're using the language, they're doing the things. So then basically you're almost like disguising it. But the outsiders then hear the language and then they get confused about what the message of the movie. So it's an interesting thing. So what happens is, in Don John, he basically he portrays himself as this ridiculous,
I loved that movie.
Jim Tan, whatever kind of guy. But he was touching on a point, which was we have such an intimate guys have such an intimate relationship with our porn that it becomes better than sex, and that was sort of the theme of the movie. And he's not wrong. There's something about, like, I'll come home and I'll be on the road, and it's like there's something about when I come home, I've been on the road for a month. And one of the first things I have to do is I have to get in my room, get in my space, and look at my porn and have my orgasm that was perpetrated by me. Even if I was like having fun on the road and let's say I had a fun little sexual spree or whatever, you still come home and there's nothing more personal and specific about that moment. And I think porn can allow some people to just make that the whole thing.
But I think on the flip side of that, and this is just me being devil's advocate, is that some people, for whatever reason, either they don't or they can't, or they have a very challenging time having satisfying sexual relationships with another person. And so porn does allow them to kind of have that.
Sure.
Because I do believe that solo sex is a very essential part of our entire expression of our sexuality.
How you come on your own is important. I know some of the best sexual experiences I've had in my life. When you're young as a man, there's an ego to sex, and you want to make everyone come, and that becomes a thing. Exactly. So then you meet someone who's older than you, and they go, listen, I can only come if we do these 4 things. And you go, great. And you do the 4 things. You hit the buttons. You put the cheat code into her vagina. She comes. And it's like, there's a beauty in that, and the communication of that point. And but that you don't get that with every person. Yeah. So to have a person who comes into the game who knows their 9 moves and they know how to do it is also there's something beautiful about it. But we don't have that. Not everybody has that.
No, not everybody has that. But
and that's the other side is in the perfect world, all of the things that we learn from these can create this. But in the imperfect world is you're just by yourself, and that's the only time you can come.
Yeah.
So there is.
Well, the thing that I found really interesting about going back to the Don John.
Yeah.
There is a very specific segment of psychology or mental health that is about sex addiction, and they have this very specific model that they go through, and my view on it has changed over the years, and I think my argument is that it's more of a compulsion and an obsession. And I think that can be applied to anything. Yeah. But because it's related to sex, and sex is taboo. A taboo subject, and it's it's something, especially in Western culture, when you talk about Puritan values and all that kind of.
It's not even that. It's a private issue. So it's more than it being taboo. It's like that's your thing. Yeah. and you do your thing. And then now, because of the open conversation about trans and trans culture, we're becoming this dismissive society of, that's not my body, that's not that's not me, so let them do whatever they want, which I think is actually closing more doors and having less conversation.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, that's not my business, or people are afraid to.
Right.
To
it's
talk
not
about
my
it,
business. If you wanna, and I really do think, and this is where I get into shaky ground. I think that the answer to the trans problem doesn't have anything to do with surgery, and then I get into the shaky ground where people are like, who are you? Who are you to think?
What do you mean trans problem? What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't mean to call it a
No,
problem.
I'm
but
just,
so
I'm just curious
so the two sides of the argument are let everyone do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Or don't do that. And I'm not on either thing because I don't think that's the solution. I think the discussion of gender and maybe dissolving the concept of gender is
a spectrum. It's not a binary.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to the nirvana of this situation.
Yeah.
And the answer for everyone might not be to physically change their gender via surgery. And I think we're not asking people anymore about how they feel and whether or not this would be the solution. And I worry that if you get a surgery and you don't like the result of that surgery, that as a person, instead of looking back to yourself and going, well, who am I? How do I resolve this? You can then, as a person, just go, well, the doctor fucked up. And I think that's the problem. And I'm trying to work on this idea comedically that, like, I also don't like vegetarian culture when they try to make it taste like meat. Like it doesn't, like an eggplant is delicious.
Let it taste like a vegetable,
let the eggplant be the eggplant. And so that's the notion. Is I'm more comfortable, even as a straight male, interacting with a trans person, maybe sexually, where they say, listen, I'm this, and it has nothing to do with what anybody's changed. I am a woman in a man's body, or I'm a woman with male genitalia. I think that is a healthier resolution of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because you take a vegetable and then you try to shove it back into meat packaging, and just let a vegetable be a vegetable.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, and this is, I worked with the trans community, and I worked with queer issues and open relationships and all of that when I was working as a therapist. So I'm still pretty passionate about those issues. And the trans experience, and this is something I've learned over the years, because my experience with trans people was very limited.
Sure.
For a long time. And the trans experience is very, very complicated.
Yes.
And just because someone says they're trans does not mean they want to, let's say someone was, assigned male at birth, and they say, oh, I experienced my gender differently.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that they want to go and look like
a
Barbie doll.
Right.
It could simply be that they will wear women's clothing and they don't change anything about their body, their appearance, anything. It's because gender is this kind of amorphous thing.
And that's the conversation I want to be a part of.
It's a societal construct that we're creating, but it's still, I mean, I firmly am female, and I do tend to be kind of girly, I guess. But I feel a little butch sometimes, I like to put my jeans on and my boots and
I like to cry at movies.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite things about me is that I cry at movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, and I support the idea of the fluidity of the conversation, and it is, and so the problem is we take a category that we know is not A or B, and we're trying to shove it back into A or B, and I just think that's the problem, and that's where we're running into these discussions of just, and the once you get to a conversation where you just go, let them do whatever they want, that's a less tolerant position to be in.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's challenging for me too is that the very visible trans people are people that fit, especially trans women. Yeah. That fit this very hyper feminine. Yeah. Standard.
You're right.
Like a Janet Mock or Laverne Cox, or even just Caitlyn Jenner, and it's like all the stuff that she's gotten done. Yeah. Okay, if that makes her happy, great. Right. But
we're never asking her.
Yeah, but
are you happy?
But also is that a lot of people, if they're not exposed to various kinds of people, they think, oh, Oh, so you say you're a trans woman. Okay, when are you having the surgery?
Right. Well, and then the other problem is that becomes because of the people you mentioned. So then that becomes the standard of what you do next, and that might not be what everyone wants, and that's the problem. Is we've closed it up. I mean, we
I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, no. That's what I want to talk about this for hours. Because what happens is every time I try to talk about this, somebody just starts calling me a bigot, and I was like, no, I'm like you're like not listening. I'm way more comfortable with someone having male genitalia and me assigning them female gender. I'm way more comfortable with that.
I say to people all the time, I'm like, some women have dicks and some guys have pussies.
Right, and
it's not a big deal.
What I do
find, are you fucking them? No, then why does it matter?
Right. That's the other one. Is if it doesn't intersect with your life. The other problem I have, and then this is a whole other thing, and then this is where it gets shaky on the other end of the spectrum, which is my feelings about honesty across the board are so strong that when we do this thing where we say, well, you get a surgery and then now from now on you're a woman because you've gotten the surgery and it's a reassignment and it's nobody's business what you were before. It's not even that it's dishonest to me from like from my heterosexuality. It's dishonest as a human. Like I started seeing a girl and I found out accidentally, I kind of Googled her. I didn't know how to spell her name and I didn't want to fuck it up. And I Googled her because Google fixes everything.
Oh no!
And I found pictures of her previous wedding.
Oh,
so she was married a year and a half before I met her. So it begs
That's pretty recent.
Yeah, it begs the conversation, like, anything about being married and this and that. And so for me, it was like every day that she didn't tell me, and every day that we went on a date, and she didn't mention that she was recently divorced or separated, whatever, made me feel more and more like she was just a dishonest person. So even down to that factor, that poisoned the relationship for me because
of course.
I'm a very upfront, very honest person.
Yeah.
And I put all the stuff on the table. And I think that's the only way to harmony in relationships is to have that level of honesty.
Certainly I think that yes, that honesty is really important, but this is the
it's a privacy issue.
Well, this
it's a taboo
is a privacy issue, but this is the seed that I would plant for you to think about is the history of violence against trans people. And so the disclosure of that many times is being held back because I know too many fucking people here.
You're supposed to. You're supposed to. No, but I'm with you on that, and that's where the water gets muddy, right? That's where it is
a complex issue.
That's where the conversation, right? That's where it comes back on me, where I feel a little out of place, right? It's like it's the same kind of thing. It's like if you're dating someone and they're raped, what is their responsibility to you to tell you that it happened if it's a new relationship? It's like those kinds of things, and it's like I'm not right. To feel that I should be given that information immediately because it's not my information to have, and it's not my place when someone goes through something traumatic to owe me anything. But then I'm still put in a position where I have to, now weigh the circumstance. So if somebody comes into my life and they were prior, previously another gender, if we're living a relationship the way that I view a perfect relationship, that should be something that they would want to tell me.
You would hope that conversation would come up.
Right. So that's the thing.
That's
the thing. And again, and nothing to do with heterosexuality or homosexuality or anything, and nothing to do with my own identity. It's just
a matter of honesty.
An honesty perspective. And it's like I can't preach on the one hand that if I decide one day that I want to fuck someone's feet and I'm married, I should tell my wife. Like, how can you get to the sexual complexity of a relationship with someone who hasn't been honest about where they've been in the past?
Yeah.
And
unless your wife says it's fine for you to fuck feet.
Yeah.
Just not pussy.
Yeah.
Or ass.
Oh, fuck other people's feet?
Like, yeah.
Oh,
just
there's that too. Yeah.
Feet,
Yeah, I don't want you to fuck.
I
don't want you to fuck my feet. Yeah, I don't want you to fuck my feet, but I can't deny that you want to fuck feet, so you should go fuck some feet. Yeah, maybe.
I'm so for that shit.
And I'm dissolving my concepts of monogamy in the last few years.
I haven't been monogamous in almost 10 years.
Oh, wow. And I think there's something to it, and there's something to this understanding of people that we're not each other's possessions, and that all of the things that I can be for you, I can't necessarily I can't fill all the categories, right? Like, there is a limit to my ability to whatever the things are. Not everybody's built the same, and so there are things that you need that I could never give you, and vice versa, and across the board. And so, whether it's a conversation, whatever it is, we need to understand that we're complex humans, and it might take dozens of humans to fully make us whole, you know?
And I talk to people about that all the time because, so I'm still legally married. I'm getting divorced.
So this is an interesting thing that should have come up earlier in the podcast.
Sorry.
No, so you're legally.
Yeah, so I just Are
you saying you're legally separated?
No, I'm still legally married.
Okay.
He lives in Seattle.
Nice.
So we were together for 7 years.
Yep.
We were married for about a year and a half. I mean, I guess 2 years now.
Okay.
Since it's now 2 years later.
Yeah.
We're still legally married. But we always had some form of an open relationship.
Yeah.
During the years that we were together, whether that was we would like kind of do more
together,
swinger stuff together, or
right. That's the first step, right? You do it together, and then you start.
Well, when we got together, I was actually already dating several other people.
Oh, okay.
And so we decided to kind of be monogamous when we got together. But
this
then
is a man.
Yes, yes, I'm married to a man. And over the years, it changed and it morphed. But people would be like, so when we got engaged, and and then we were going to get married like 2 years later, and we were poly at the time, and like, he had a girlfriend and I had a boyfriend, and we actually shared a girlfriend. And people are like, so why are you getting married then if you're just going to have an open relationship? And I'm just like, one, it's none of your fucking business what I do with my life.
That's a fair point. I like that. That's your first point.
That's a fair
point.
First point.
Fuck you. None of your business.
Shut your fucking mouth.
Second point. I'll explain a little deeper.
But secondly, I think that just going back to like what you said is that it takes there's many different parts of who you are to be fulfilled. And I talk to people a lot about that too. It's just like, why would you expect one person to fulfill every single need, be your best friend, your confidant, your sexual fantasy,
your
all
business
this stuff,
partner, right? All the things.
It's just
you can't expect
like that's a lot to put on one fucking person too.
Right. And it's and the probability is low just because we made up this thing. We made up this thing through religion. We made up this thing through societal norms. We made up this thing through law that you got to pick one person and they're supposed to be exactly perfect for you. Well, we know that they're not. We know that they're not going to be exactly perfect for you. Yeah. And that even if they're perfect for you in 1984, they're definitely not going to be perfect for you in 1998, right? So it's like the length of this is the thing. The length of monogamy for me is called into question. And I do a bit on stage where I go, look, the key to a long-lasting marriage is simple. Just don't get a divorce. And that's it. You look at people that have been married for a long time, and they had to work at it. And they came up with certain things, right? I said you couldn't get divorced in the 50s. Grandpa just moved into the study. That's all that would happen. And that's fine. But that's how they navigated being married. And gender roles actually helped it. You go, you got to do these 9 things, I do these 9 things. And look, it's not because you're unequal or whatever. It's because we can't do all of it. We can't do all the things. Yeah. But now we think we can do all the things alone. And then we go, what the fuck do I need you for? I can do all the things. Yeah. And so now we're in that spot consistently. Yeah. And we're still fooled into thinking that, like, because I'm important and I'm an individual, that this person should then worship me. And we're not worried about worshiping them. Well, yeah, and then it comes down to this, like, that sex with somebody else is like the ultimate betrayal. Right. And whereas I'm like, whatever, it's sex. Yeah. Who gives a fuck? Right. Well, the thing that I think you steal money from me or you fuck up my credit, like I would have been way more pissed. Way worse. Yeah. No, whatever. The other thing I find interesting is what was I going to say? Sorry, I don't know, just weird other things were shooting through my head during that. Fuck up my credit. Is the idea that, like, once we get into a relationship, we shut off the outside sexual part of us to that person, right? So of the people that I've dated, I didn't really know what their sexual habits were before me. Yep. And I don't know what their sexual habits are after me. So then, not knowing that, I also don't know who they are, in a sense. Like I found it really important to me at the beginning of this year for the person that I started a relationship with to understand the circumstances in which I may or may not have sex. And for me, there was one experience where I was in this open relationship, and I was in Albuquerque, and we met some beautiful people, some artists, and some things, and we ended up staying with this artist who actually did my album cover. Actually, I don't know if she wants me airing her business, but we had a beautiful, intimate moment where I was like shaving the side of her head.
Oh wow!
And it became a very passionate moment, and that's a circumstance in which I would have sex, and and it's like, and nothing leading up to that or before that or after that did I know was going to lead to that circumstance, but that pure, real, fun moment and having the open conversation, the open relationship with the person I was with allowed this to be beautiful.
Yeah, and not something that was like you had guilt about what you were doing, and you're like, I can't tell my girlfriend about
I called
this.
the girl I was with, and I said, this is what's going on, and so on and so forth. And our rule was there was a 24-hour rule because the hours were different, and it was like, if something happens, let's talk about it within 24 hours. We get that it's a busy schedule, but as long as you let me know what's going on, there's an honesty there.
Yeah.
And I totally advocate for that. But
so the theme of today is honesty.
Honesty.
The word of the day.
No, that should be the theme every day, is honesty. You know what I mean? It really is. I try to bring honesty to my comedy. I try to bring honesty to the conversations but it's a hard pill for people to swallow.
I bring honesty to my porn.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I'm fucking real as shit.
Yeah, you should.
On camera. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
Yeah.
So you're.
I really like fucking, so that's why I do porn.
Right. Yeah. It is interesting. I have been saying this. This is the thing I've been trying to explore. You doing porn and other people doing porn, you've removed a certain need, a sexual need. Now I get to do that. Porn sex is very different from human sex. Let's call it human sex.
Yeah.
But you're still getting a release, and you're still getting a sexual experience that everyone else isn't getting, right? So what happens is, as a layperson, as a civilian, what happens is
we call you civilian.
You miss out. You miss out on this other layer of sex. So then sometimes I remember being you like in a relationship, you start like counting, and you like it becomes more valuable or like to have the sex. And I'm just stammering through this sentence 'cause I'm trying to figure out how to frame it. But the point is, like, sex becomes so much more important because it's like if you fuck up a sexual experience as a civilian, you don't know maybe when the next time you have that experience is, and so the value is heightened.
There's more gravity to it,
and having it be perfect and having it be the right situation.
I think that's just,
and we obsess over it.
I think that's just a societally influenced.
That's true too, but the less sex you're having, the more valuable each individual encounter becomes.
Yeah.
So if I'm like with a girl and it might and I'm breaking up and I don't know when the next time I'm gonna have sex is, like the value of the sex becomes higher because I have to now go re-hunt. I have to go hunt again.
Yeah.
So my point is, because you've removed the not the demand, but the you're getting sex at a higher rate than a normal person. Then you've gotten to this next Zelda level of communication and being able to get what you want, and you've devalued the need for individual sex on a clock. So then I find that there's a complexity that porn stars have, an understanding of sexuality that a civilian just can't get to.
Well, I'm also kind of a different case too, because I'm not in a relationship.
Right.
Nor will I be anytime soon.
Yeah.
If ever.
But I find that people that are open about relationships and in open relationships and understand sexuality are people that have more opportunities to have sex. So it's performers, it's celebrities, it's people in porn, because they're able to access sex whenever they want.
Yeah.
And then that makes them a more understanding and more tolerant person. Because again, it's like if you're in a relationship with your wife who hasn't fucked you in 10 years, there's a different value that you've placed on sex.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it's been really interesting. I think the biggest thing for me is this is kind of branching off of what we're talking about, but being able to just fully be authentic.
Yes.
In every part of my life, because you know, in my previous career when I was a therapist, I was a dirty, nasty freak like I am now.
Sure.
But having to kind of separate those two parts of myself and not being able to be as fully authentic as I wanted to be. Yeah. And granted, I think most people have to do that. We have to censor ourselves in certain settings or around certain people, or, you know, you can't be talking about, you know, how many girls you fucked over the weekend.
I'm against it across the board.
At the office, you know, or whatever. But you know, the thing that I love about this fucking job, literally this fucking job, is that, is that I can fully authentically be myself.
Right. And that's why I gravitated to comedy. It was the same thing. Was whatever thing I want to talk about, there's no rule that says I can't talk about it. As long as I figure out the way to package it so the audience will be on board and they'll stick with me through the laughs.
Exactly.
I can talk about whatever the fuck I want.
Exactly.
You know, you got to you have to build a skill set and you have to be able to do it effectively, right? There's plenty of things that I've tried to talk about and have failed because I don't get the agreement with the crowd along the way. Like I really want to talk about just food culture and how we think that being fat is lazy, and I contend that being fat is actually one of the hardest working jobs there is. You have to, like, being around an obese person, you witness them putting the work in. You know, you go 4 hours in a car and they have eaten 6 times somehow. You're only in the car 4 hours and you're like, listen, you're doing you're doing a hell of a job. You're the best at this job. But it's like,
hey, if you were in a car with me for 4 hours, I probably would eat 6 times too. I eat a lot.
So that's fine too.
Yeah,
that's fine too.
I'm a snacker.
But it's just one of those things, you know, that I think, and that's what I love about this business, mine and yours, is I do get to meet people like you who I think get it and who are coming with some life experience and gain a lot from this experience, and somehow have, like, figured out that, like, I don't know, when I talk to comedians, I realize that, like, we look outside and we see a bunch of people and we go, they don't fucking get it. And we're fine with that. Like, we're fine. We're still going to be able to talk to those people, but we know that we figured it out.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, there's people in porn that don't get it. But for the most part, I meet people that get it.
I mean, it is still a weird job.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, there's people that are in it for the wrong reasons, just like anything else. There's people that are going to get abused and thrown out of it, and people that are going to use the thing wrong. But then there's people that, like, get it. I'm also
a performer. I've been a performer my whole life. I studied voice in college. I didn't end up doing my degree in voice, but so I've been a singer my whole life.
Yeah.
Performer, and I've realized, and this isn't something that even kind of crossed my mind when I went into porn, but being on camera allows me to indulge that performer part of myself.
For sure.
I fucking love performing.
Yeah. Like, I used to have, this was a bit I never got to work, but there was an idea in my head in my 20s where I was like, honestly, doing porn represents all of my career goals. It's like being on camera. I get to have some sex, and then I can't remember what the other ones were. It's a very unlikable joke. Yes, getting paid. It's a very unlikable joke. Like you tell a crowd of people that you think that you could be a porn star, and there's like all these things that they go, it was, you know, pull your dick out, all these things. But it's like, you know, the idea of that aspect was always there. So it is interesting. Yeah, you get the performance, you get the thing. People know who you are. You're fucking killing it. Porn I found.
Some people know who I am.
Porn I found is another. It's a good portal to other things because of social media, because notoriety is a currency in its own. It doesn't really matter what you're known for anymore. Yeah, you can be known for anything as a comedian, just as long as they recognize my face. I could be the secretary on some terrible show. As long as they recognize my face, they will buy a ticket to the show. And there's something that porn allows as well.
Your security guard number 7.
yeah as long as they recognize your face. Or I guess, or your vagina, I guess, in this case.
It's usually my ass that
your
people
ass
recognize.
Yeah. Well, you're lovely to talk to. I appreciate you doing this episode. Sorry, that sort of stammered that point through the end there. I get yelled at by the listeners a lot. They're like, "Shut up and let her talk, man." So I fell into that category at the end.
I don't know about that.
Into the end, I fell into that category a little bit. So I apologize to the listeners.
I think you had some very valid points.
I tried.
Okay?
I tried. Della Dane's lovely to talk to. How do they follow you online?
So you can follow me on Twitter, which is Della Dane XXX. I have Instagram as well, which is The Real Della Dane. I just hit 20,000 followers on Instagram too, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, woohoo! Let's get me to 100. And then I also have
private Snap.
I have a public Snapchat, which is Della Dane XXX. If you want to join my private Snapchat, I post all the information on my social media.
This is the thing I've been forgetting to plug. I didn't realize until I started doing this podcast the amount of porn that is stolen, pirated, these sorts of things. I knew of the idea of the problem, but what I now understand is if I don't pay for the content that I'm using at that exact moment, likely the performer didn't get paid for it either. So pay for your porn.
Well, what happens is, I mean, we would get paid, we get paid for the scene, but then what happens is that the more and more it's
distributed,
it's being distributed, and it's not being adequately, at least this is my understanding, it's not adequately being attributed to the companies. They're not getting income from it, and so they're not going to be able to keep paying us. So it's like, you look at the huge companies that used to be around, and it's like it's not there anymore because people they're not getting the same revenue they used to.
So moral is pay for your porn. If you didn't pay for it, then the person who you want to stay in the business did not get paid for it. So that's the sub point there. We are on iTunes. We are on Google Play. Wherever you found us, we're on The Other Thing. We have some YouTube content from today. If you want to check that out, share this. Let other people know how great Della Dane is, how great the Pornstars Are People podcast is. I'm your host, Dan Frigolette. I'm very funny. You can check me out online. Try to find my videos. A new episode of Pornstars Are People podcast drops every Sunday. Try to give you good content as much as we can. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you again to my guest, Della Dane.